Hi. Oh, no. There we go. Okay, so let's talk about the silliest thing I've ever done on a date. I was dating a guy, and I had seen on TV that women went out on dates without their underwear on, and it was very, very sexy. So I decided that I would go out on a date with him without my underwear on. Of course, I did not tell him I wasn't wearing underwear until we had already gotten home, and he said, yes, it would have been sexier if he had actually known that I had had underwear on. So that was a definite lesson. It's always a learning curve. So, yes, note to self, let them know that you're not wearing underwear. So, maybe the most adventurous thing I've ever done when I had sex. I guess the most exhibitionist thing I ever did on a date was my boyfriend and I went to an art gallery where there was one of the rooms where they were showing films of the artist, and I gave him a hand job in there, and he thought it was great, and I was completely freaked out because I thought we were going to get caught, and I was like, I don't want to do this. And it was sad because I had said that I wanted to until it actually hit me, and I was like, nope, absolutely not. So my boyfriend was upset. Okay, so do I find it easy to speak openly about my sexuality and desire? Yes. No, actually, why did I say yes? No, I don't find it easy. Maybe it's because I'm a Virgo, but sex has always been extremely private, extremely intimate. I don't like talking about it. I have some issues with my body that make me feel uncomfortable talking about it. I have a lot of whatever. It's okay. And my mom always said something that she'd heard from someone that said, there's nothing more beautiful than your own sex life and nothing more disgusting than someone else's. And yes, not, yes, uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable when people talk to me about their sex life, and so I feel that perhaps they will if I do as well. Okay, next question. Oh, has this always been the case? And how has having a dialogue or lack thereof affected me? Yes, it has always been the case, and definitely there have been times when things have happened with my body that I felt uncomfortable with, and I thought I was the only person who was experiencing it. And if I had talked to somebody else, yes, I probably would have been that way, especially after I gave birth to my son. I had an episiotomy, and so there was a scar tissue in my vagina, and I was like, I'm completely destroyed. I'm like a wrecked car. And then also there's something that happens when you're breastfeeding, when you're, I don't know what you would say, the liquid that you make in your vagina becomes less watery and more viscous, like sticky. And so I was convinced that I was permanently broken. And my mom was dead. I didn't have anybody to talk to. And I didn't realize until I read an article later that that was something that naturally happened. So, yes, it probably would have helped. How important is sex to you? And what role does sex play in your lifetime? Um, well, I've been married to my husband for 17 years. We've been together for 19. And right now, sex is something that we have to kind of plan into our lives, or that we have to do. But it is very important because it's definitely something that brings us together and makes us enjoy each other more, and all of that. And I know in the New York Times they say, people who have sex like 3 times a week are healthier than other people who don't. And if it's in the New York Times, then it definitely has to be true. So, but yeah, we really have to push it. Also, on an aside, this is a little more, when you have sex with your husband, he's much more willing to do chores and things like that. So there's definitely the transactional kind of thing that goes on with there. Have I ever experienced low sexual desire? Yes. I experienced low sexual desire in my 20s. I definitely experienced low sexual desire after I had my son, because I finally realized what they were talking about when they said sex leads to all of that. And I was like, all right, I've experienced what it was like to push something gigantic out of my vagina and have everything like ripped apart and feel really weird. And now that I know that that's what sex leads to, no more sex. But you know, of course, I wanted to have sex with my husband again after that. When there has been low sexual desire on my part, or even on my husband's part, it's definitely been awful. Not awful, but yeah, maybe awful. My people feel rejected, especially men, when you don't want to have sex with them. For them, I've read in books that that's a way that they feel loved and connected, and so they like to have sex a lot. And you know, there are definitely periods of time where I've been bored, or I have depression, and there's been periods of time where I've been in a very, very low state, and I didn't want anybody to touch me because I didn't even want to touch myself. I felt gross, and that was very hard. Um, so, what advice would I give someone struggling with their own issues and desires? My Because of my experience with low sexual desire and knowing that there were other factors that contributed to it, I would share my experience with someone else and say, if you're experiencing the same thing, it's really important that you don't just look at sex in a vacuum, that you look at it holistically, because there are things in your life that may be affecting your sex drive. And if you don't look at those, then you're not going to be able to move forward with sex. And then, of course, there are classes that people can take to like spice up their lives and all of that, and learning new things, which is interesting. I've never done anything like that, really. I mean, I've never dressed up in characters. I mean, what, like Glinda the Good Witch, or I look like a teacher, perhaps your school teacher, although I look like your middle-aged white school teacher, so that's a little creepy. But yeah, that also could help. Okay, thanks.